This is a test of selective attention. Count.
Down here. So if you could, don't be mad. Can you move up and try to come into this middle section and we can actually talk to each other? So I've built in time. When you're in a whole group, you can't really enjoy each other and talk to each other. So if you could just come move to the middle. I will only call on people in the back. So just a note, only the people in the back will get called on. Am I going to be too close to you, Tom? This is going to be good, good. Oh, look at, perfect. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. If I stand here, can you see me? Good enough? You don't really need to see me. Is this too hard? Am I too close to you?
All right. Matter.
Is that too close? Do you want to move back a little bit? Okay. I know, it's pretty big, isn't it? Look at that little genius boy, how cute he is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm more excited about this session than the morning because this is the nuts and bolts of everything. Thank you. I so appreciate this. I need a timekeeper, clearly. This is not my genius, keeping time. So I got so excited this morning, it went a little over. So I want to honor your time. What is our end time? Do you know? 11:30. So will somebody come up and just like tell me to shut up at about 11:20, or just give me can you guys give me a signal at 11:20 that I gotta wrap things up? Okay, all right. So thank you for being here. At any point, this is a time where we can talk to each other, where we can figure this out together. And so at any time, if you have a question, just raise your hand, just shout out, stop. We'll move to whatever it is. All of the slides from this morning and all of these slides are here. And I have all the lessons that we'll go through today are in a free book that I'll start traveling around, so you don't really need to write anything down, and everything that we do together you can have immediately to do with your kids or to do with your community. So I really want this to be a conversation. I fundamentally and fully have always, but especially now, believe that we are in the presence of genius. And I mean that with every fiber of my being. We are in the presence of genius right now. Look at the genius next to you, say hello to them. Look at the genius to the left of you, say hello to them. This notion that genius is some sort of DNA anomaly, that it's just a random gene for only a certain few, like blue eyes or black eyes, brown eyes, you get it, but you don't get it, is not only harmful to learning, not only harmful to innovation, it is harmful to humanity because it sets up an excuse to not give of your full self, a systems level excuse to not excel and to not contribute at the level we were born to contribute because we're not just this, or we're not enough of that. The paradox is that genius is not the anomaly, average is the anomaly. Even if you tried, you could not be average 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on every single thing you achieved. At some moment, you will shine. At some moment, there will be an aliveness that just surges through you, where you feel different than the moment before it or the moment after that. The problem is we are in a system and society that doesn't celebrate those moments, that doesn't create opportunities for those moments because it's designed for convenience around the moments you are average. Our identities for centuries have been shaped by how far above and below average we are as individuals and as a system. This is a high grade school because everybody is a certain percentage above average. It is ridiculous. Genius is not an anomaly. It is our birthright. It is the source of our liveliness and the root of our resiliency. And we should be creating systems and, at the very least, experiences around figuring out what those moments mean for us personally and how we can excel and accelerate those moments collectively. And that's what Liberating Genius is about. The redefinition, the reframing of our ideas around genius. When I first started using the tag, Liberating Genius, and I was writing the title of the book and sort of framing what the process is that we go through as individuals when we choose to matter, people pushed back on this word. You can't use the word genius. Don't use that word. And I'm like, that's exactly why I'm using this word. Because we have got to stop the narrative. We've got to create a new narrative that doesn't define who you are, but what's inside of you and what you're capable of. And here's how the world defines genius today in the 21st century. An individual or an organization who can solve a problem in a way that it has not yet been addressed. An individual or an organization who has the ability and the wherewithal to make an impact. The humility and the honor to use what they have to move something bigger than themselves forward. And takes their God-given gifts, whatever they may be, whether it's the dancing in a pink tutu or the speaking from your heart or whatever it is, and uses that to give that to the world with no expectation of reciprocity, because there is a moral obligation for those that have been given the responsibility for those to share those gifts beyond themselves. Anyone and everyone not only has done one or more of these things on a regular basis, but has the capacity to do it more, to accelerate this in other people. And that's really the true genius of the 21st century. Your ability to notice genius in your presence. Because making, not since the beginning of time, has a singular genius. Even the ones that we've defined as being genius made the impact that they have made on their own by themselves. Not once. They may have gotten the credit for it, but they had a team of individuals influencing and impacting behind the scenes. So there is no such thing as a lone genius. What they did better than anyone else is notice and leverage the genius in their presence. So the problem or the challenge with this, our ability to turn around learning and turn around performance and our system, is that noticing isn't something that we automatically do. As Alec, if you were here for his digital workshop, said, attention is a new strategy. Paying attention to anything anymore is a challenge, let alone the people in your presence. I don't know if it's an exciting state or a sad state. He showed a picture of there's signs all over saying, look up from your phone, look up from your phone. Like when you're walking, people just gave up on that. So there's a whole city that made all the stoplights and stop signs on the floor because they just know that people aren't going to look up. So noticing is something that needs to be practiced. It's a discipline, a muscle to be built. We not only have the opportunity to do that, we have an obligation to do that. It is our duty, our moral obligation, to demand that the genius in our presence shows up and shows itself. So we need to take seriously and take essence of or stock in what our NQ is, our noticing quotient. So we're going to get a baseline test today. Are you ready? We're going to test our NQ. So I'm going to ask you in the next minute to not say anything out loud, but to just follow the prompts and procedures, and then we'll talk about the scores when we get done. Are you ready for this? All right, don't share until we're done. So here we go.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many?
Okay, how many passes did you count? 16. We have a 16 over here. 15 over here. 14 here. 16, 15, 14. Anyone else different? 11. All right. Did you see the gorilla? Raise your hand if you saw the gorilla. Oh my gosh, I knew this was a genius group. Wow, I've never had that response ever. So I'll tell you the statistics. Let's take another look. Oops, sorry.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball.
So I'm going to be truthful. My noticing quotient is improving. I did not see the gorilla. And I am like 70% of the population. So this
How many
test
passes
has been,
did you count?
Sorry.
The correct answer is 15 passes. But did you see the gorilla?
And so this is just and once you notice, you're like, how could I miss that? Seriously, it's embarrassing. Like the gorilla goes in and makes it, a dance in the middle. But 70%
This video
of
is
the
from
people
research by Daniels.
since the beginning did not see literally the gorilla in the room. And the reason is because we atoned and attended our brain to pay attention to something else. Look at this and look at this, but don't look at this. So our brain gets accustomed to doing that. Here is the real gorilla in the room that we don't talk about. And I don't know, because this was done with data and language and structures from the United States, so it could be slightly different here in Canada. But this side of the room, the school wants, is direct language that came from our United States government, from school websites, from documents that proclaim that these are programs that we adopted at our school that we're promising if your students go through, they will be ready for the world and the workforce. And I put them all in a word cloud. There were about 120 documents total. And this is what we're saying to pay attention to. This is the passes, and this is the gorilla. Because I did the same thing for the world and workforce. So when we looked at what industry is asking for, when we looked at what they are recruiting for, what they're hiring for, what they're training for, I put those in a word cloud and we put those up face to face. The gorilla is standing with the basketball team, not hidden underneath. And what do you notice about the two? Would you say it would be similar? Is it drastically different? Here? Different?
Yeah.
Very different. You would be more on this side.
Standards and Common Core.
Okay, so standards and Common Core. Can I just move to Canada for a multitude of reasons? Especially if this election doesn't get better. I would like to move to Canada, please. Please, please. We won't go there. All right, so it's too depressing. So this is very sobering because it isn't something that we're just saying. This is our brand promise. We are saying, and we've been saying it for 150 years, if you do this, we promise you, students, that you will not only be ready, but you will excel. You will be absolutely employable and successful and significant. And because we're noticing this, all of those things, we start ignoring. And when you look at the characteristic traits, the habits, the dispositions, the mindsets of geniuses, individuals and organizations who make an impact, who move the world forward, who change history in epic ways, that is how you describe them. Those are the ways and means in which they do the work that they've been proclaimed to do. That also describes every 5-year-old I've ever met. In fact, they say that it describes 99% of 5-year-olds across any demographic, across any continent, any country. But I have not met the one 5-year-old that they are saying that is not passionate, that is not curious, that is not adaptable, that is not willing to be courageous and take a risk and push something and try something. So they must be living in Canada because I have not recognized one of them. So here's the challenge. Genius exists already. It is not something you can take a course for. It's not something that you can, be done in a few semesters and get an A on curiosity, but a B+ on passion. It is something that exists within all of us and requires a very specific context and culture to come out, one that recognizes. And the result of noticing this, but not noticing this, means if you're not going to pay attention to it, I'm going to hide it. I'm going to cover it up. Because not only is genius or these qualities not noticed in many organizations and many schools, it is frowned upon. That's why you get your name said, because you're asking too many questions, because you're thinking that's not on our curriculum or that's not a part of this conversation. So, and you can see it starting very early on. I was riding the plane over here with a 3-year-old. And so I started typing everything the 3-year-old was saying. And from the second Jordan, my seatmate, sat down, about 1,000 questions came out and he hadn't even breathed yet. It was like, so why is that? It was his first flight too. So imagine a first flight with a 3-year-old. So why is the captain wearing a hat? Does everybody wear a hat? Why don't those lady people wear hats? Well, can I have a hat? How come? Do they get hot up there? When they go in that little point up there, then do they ever come out? If they come out, could they come sit by us? And it just went on. And his mom was so stressed and everybody is around him was like, oh, this is going to be a long ride. And I'm like, do not at all ask him to stop, because the moment you stop showing what's inside of you, thinking about what you're dreaming about, the moment your learning stops, the moment your life, your full life stops. One of my favorite quotes is, the genius of the genius in the future is keeping childlike genius alive throughout your adulthood. And that's what we have to do. There is genius to be liberated everywhere. And I specifically chose the word liberation because it is our human right, our deepest human DNA level right to make an impact in the world we happen to be a part of. Not to just exist in this world, not to just accept this world. We were created for significance. And we, at one point in our lives, woke up every day and said, world, you are so lucky I am up today because I am going to do something epic. And that's exactly what you did. It might have been in the sandbox or it might have been with a stick or a cardboard box, but there was nothing unepic about it. There's genius to be liberated. And I want to present today a framework that I think does that both at an individual level, in our own lives, in our own learning, but more importantly, does that, or as importantly, does that at scale. Because that is what the world is asking for. They're not asking for mediocre. They're not asking for complacency. They're not asking you to be one of a million. They're asking you to be one in a million, to stand out, to step out, to be out on whatever stage it is that you're being asked to stand on. So the lessons and the framework are all laid out. I'm very grateful to my partnership with Microsoft because they're allowing me to give the book and the lessons away free to every school, every parent, every community, and every classroom. And this book is unwritten. It is absolutely unwritten. These are the lessons that I have gleaned from being surrounded from the last 3 years around change makers, around individuals and organizations that wake up every day as if they were 3, saying, world, thank goodness we exist because we are about to rock your day. And they make it their obligation at every level to disrupt the universe and leave the world a little better off than they found it. And when you spend time around change makers, it changes you. And I thought, my goodness, what if I had these lessons? What if I had this experience 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when I actually believed I could make an impact? What kind of impact would that make on me? So the book and the framework are in 3 different separate sections, and yet each section is all interrelated. So it's not linear, meaning I have to do lesson 1 all the way to lesson 30. But I want you to recognize what are the objectives of each phase of the liberation of genius. So the first most important phase is the acceptance of this definition, but more importantly, the acceptance of your responsibility to your own genius and the genius around you. There are very few people that I encounter that fundamentally believe this. When I stand in front of a room of 1,000 5-year-olds, I don't even get these words out. They're like, well, what took you so long to notice? Like, seriously, lady. And they're already up on the stage telling me what their contribution can be. So for the last 3 years, this is how I've opened every conversation with students. You are a genius, and the world needs your contribution. And it is fundamentally disheartening to go from grade level to grade level. And as early as 2nd grade, I already start seeing hesitation. I'm in an auditorium of 2nd graders, and I say, you are a genius, and the world needs your contribution. And they're not rushing the stage. They are looking to the side of them like, can I be that? Is it okay if I share that? Are you sure? And by the time they're in 5th and 6th and 7th grade, their heads are down. They're like, please do not look at me. Do not call on me. I don't want to do this. And I ask an adult, tell me what your genius is. And they'll tell me their job title. I teach 3rd grade. I'm a technology integration specialist. I'm the superintendent. And I said, I can look up your job. I don't need your job title. I need to know what your genius is. And getting that out, articulating that, is an excruciating task for most human beings bigger than 5. This is the calling card for the world. This is something that used to be you would be able to do in what they call the span of an elevator ride. So they used to call this, in the world of work, an elevator pitch, because you had minutes to tell somebody what your genius is, what your value is, what your unique proposition is to their company or to the world. Now you have less than 6 seconds. You have at most 140 characters to be able to walk up with confidence and with conviction and tell someone how you will stand out and how that will serve them. Our students are living in the first generation where picking yourself will be the norm. You will not be picked by your grades. You will not be picked by your volunteer experiences. You will be picked on your uniqueness. You'll be picked on your originality. And if we're not practiced at picking ourselves, understanding what our value is and what unique genius we have to solve problems or to make an impact, is it your adaptability? Is it your imagination? Is it your agility or tenacity? Not only do you need to figure that out, and we need to help kids figure that out, they need to work out what their pitch is going to be. In the world of work, this process is called personal branding. With 5-year-olds, it's called accepting and owning your genius. And we need to start at 5 when they still actually believe they have genius inside of them, waiting to be shared with the world. This is what it looks like. You will not be noticed unless you get yourself noticed. And you have to stand out and step out, and this takes incredible self-awareness. It takes incredible courage to be able to do this, because there's a deep fear that if we say how we're different, if we say what our value is, that we're bragging, that we're doing it from a place of arrogance. But understanding that the ecosystem of the world understands that we need all kinds of genius. We need collective genius to make an impact. So I want to begin this process. And so all the lessons in the accept category help kids figure out what their unique value proposition is, what their one thing is, and what they're going to do with it, and how they're going to take responsibility for it. And the rest of the work is up to them. It's up to us to help liberate what exists within, but it's up to them personally to figure out how to develop that, how to nurture that, and how to take that seriously. So this is where technology becomes game-changing. Technology isn't for doing what you've always done. Technology is for enabling and liberating what has not yet been done. So all of the partners that we have selected for the movement amplify and accelerate the elements that we're trying to dig out. So I was really thrilled when I learned about Thrively. And Thrively is developed by the creator of Pandora Radio, which epically transformed the music industry because it created personalized channels. This is before Spotify, before iHeartRadio and all the other things that are out. Pandora was the first on the market to disrupt, and they disrupted by putting you in charge of your own channels, by using and mapping the human genome to understand your tastes, your preferences, your edge of development, so it could offer you something a little bit on your edge, but over your edge. Oh, you like this, so how about this? And it changed our interaction with music and the way that we developed as our ears and our taste. So based on that same mapping, they have done this with student passions. So students take an assessment to dig deep into what their assets are, what their genius are. It gives it a label. You have the qualities of leadership, of adaptability, of focus, of whatever it is. And then it matches channels of practice, passion practice, so that you take charge, students take charge of a digital record of the hours that they practice in their area of passion. It is also geolocated, so it sends a report to teachers and parents in a 60 to 100 mile radius if there's anything that they could experience, whether it's a lecture at the college or a play or a coding workshop or whatever that's going on, so that you take advantage of every kind of experience. And it's free, and that's what's so powerful. Transformation is almost always free. So with this in place, kids are able to take responsibility and take seriously their passions and genius and figure out what it is that they can do that nobody else can do in quite the same way. What it does for teachers is it takes the pressure off of having to recognize, which is one thing, the individual genius in your present, but then provide experiences so that can be fully liberated, nurtured, and elevated. It's very hard to do with 30 kids. It's very, very hard to do with 175 kids. This is why technology matters, because it bridges the gap between what we want to do and what we actually can do. So here's an exercise that helps kids move into the second phase. This is one of my absolute favorite exercises. I've done it about 500 times with 5-year-olds and CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. So it's called the window in the mirror. So leaders, change makers, individuals at all times must carry two things with them, a window and a mirror. And both of those serve as a self-reflective agent so that you can contribute what it is you have in a more specific and conscious way. So here's how it works. Our entire lives are built on what we call emotional, spiritual, significant congruency. That our lives are aligned when who we work to be and who we are becoming matches and is congruent with how we need to be and how we're expected to be. And most of the time, it's never perfect. In fact, Ken Robinson speaks about when you're in total congruency, he calls that the element, and says there's about 2% of human beings out of the 6 billion human beings on the planet that actually live in their element. One of the reasons is because we never examine where we are and how close we are to living in our element. So here's how we start that. The first exercise is looking deeply and honestly in the mirror at oneself. And not just seeing who that person is now, but seeing who you are seeking to be. And putting a name on that, labeling that, setting that as a standard that you compete with yourself on. Again, what is phenomenally eye-opening, when I do this experiment, and I do it a lot with cross grades, so I'll have young kids, 5, 6, all the way up to adults. I'll pass out the mirrors, kids will start writing, they're filling it out. By the time I'm to the end of the row, they're like, Mrs. Maiers, can we have another sheet of paper? Because they've literally filled this one up. It is heart-wrenching to watch individuals look in their facetious mirror and struggle to write a single thing. To look on somebody's paper like, can I write that? Is that okay to write this? And that's these children's leaders. That's their parents. So you should be able to fill this up with hundreds of words, but at the very least, 5. That's what we ask for, 5. 5 words that describe who you are seeking to be. Then, the challenge is to understand that this is who you are and how you see yourself, but at all moments, people are looking through windows at you. They are making decisions about you. They're drawing conclusions with just brief glimpses, like I see you here, I see you there, I actually peer at what you're doing. And they're drawing conclusions without fully knowing you. Now, you can say that doesn't matter. You can say it doesn't matter what people think about me, but that's absolutely a biological incorrectness, because your significance is built on your essentialness, your ability to be of value to someone else. So you do care what other people say and how they see you. And it is your decision to do something about that when you get the knowledge that allows you to be the best that you can be. So, as people in the world see you, you want to know how congruent are those two things. So if I gave you a sheet of paper, you'd fold it in half. I'd give you time, and whatever it is, a day, an hour, sometimes 5 minutes if I don't have that, and I ask you to write down your 5 words. So here's what's important. Your brand is not just what you say about yourself. Your brand, ultimately, is what others say about you when you leave the room. That's what I want you to think about with those 5 words. In those 5 words, what are the 5 most important things that people say about you and see in you when you leave the room? That's what I strive for. So 5 words go there. And then depending on how brave you are, you pass these out to anyone else in the world or the room. And if they don't know you, when they read your name, they have a responsibility to find 5 people who do know you. And so you get a report back on how the world sees you, through their windows, through their glimpses, through their angles. And then the brave comes when you open it and you compare the two. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of the behaviors that should and could be ignited. So this first one. I like this activity, but she said I was sort of loud. But it's because I can't hear, because I have a hearing problem. And it really hurt me. So this young lady, her backstory is she had just moved into this 5th grade classroom. She wanted to be one of the cool girls. Because you know, the cool girls in 5th grade that everybody wants to be a part of, especially a new girl. Well, she did not want to reveal to the cool girls that she actually had a cochlear implant. She did not want anybody to know that. She wanted to fit in. And so her overcoming, her fitting in, to overcome her hearing loss, she talked really loud. So she was perceived as being bossy and brash and harsh and sort of like a bull in a china shop. And it detracted people from wanting to be around her. But when that was revealed, how much she was willing to work to be in this group, how much she valued who they were, that she wanted to fit in, the whole conversation in the room changed. How many people do we misperceive as being, let's say, arrogant, when in fact they might be painfully shy? Or as being dismissive, or not looking at you and being disrespectful, when in their culture, it's a sign of respect to not look you in the eye. So this is our call to action as human beings in a society, to get to know someone's story, to not judge briefly, to be empathetic about who they're trying to be and help them become that rather than judge them for that. Here's another one. That was me, and I want to change. I want to be less of a gamer and more of an athlete. And so tomorrow, I'm going to be a little less crazy. Now, this sounds like a kind of flip thing, but it takes a huge amount of courage. So what this young man, who was really perceived as the class clown, is really an intelligent young man and a very serious athlete. But his actions and behaviors were not being perceived with seriousness. And so he's like, okay, then I guess I got to change that. I don't want people to think I'm just this, crazy, silly kid. I'm going to be less crazy tomorrow. And made a commitment to change his own actions and behaviors. Not to say you guys are wrong, but to actually operate as if that's how he wanted to be perceived. So here's another one. It was some stuff that I remembered was good, but then I was really surprised when he said I was smart. So I think now I'm going to be smarter, and then I'm going to become really smart. This is a beautiful discovery, to see that the world sees more of you than you see of yourself, that the world expects more of you than you have for yourself. So I've been teaching personal branding for a decade now. And in my own brand, which was really hard to get down to 140 characters, and I'm still not happy with it, I've never, ever, ever, until 3 years ago, called myself a leader. I've never written it. I've never put it behind my name. I've certainly never, ever articulated that because I believed I was just a teacher, that I wasn't a leader. And that was ingrained in my mind. I'm just a mom. I'm not a leader. Leaders had to be this. Until on the web, you get feedback like this in real time. So how Twitter does it is they create lists. So individuals put you on a list. You can make your own list, but being listed is actually a part of the influence equation online. So if someone is listed, whatever, 100 times or 200 times or 2,000 times, it means that somebody's put them in a certain category. And every day, I get to see how my lists are changing. The majority of lists that I'm on are leadership lists. Visionary, world impactor, changer. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet the first or second time. And then the third time, like, why do they keep putting me there? What are they doing? Until I started saying, well, you know what? If that's what I'm being called to be, then I have a responsibility to figure out how to do that the best I can. I started taking leadership, signing up for leadership groups. I started joining leadership forums. I started immersing myself in the leadership community. And after about 2 years, I finally started calling myself a leader. And still, it's uncomfortable. So this is huge on every level. This is probably the most heart-wrenching in the years that I've done this, the most memorable exercise. This is a 7th grader, and this was 3.5 hours that I sat with this young man in the counselor's office, just crumbled up in a corner on the floor. He would not open his paper. He was absolutely sure that the world was going to report back to him something way worse than the horrific things he called himself, from crazy to boring to lame to retarded to schizophrenic to every horrible name. And finally, he let me open his sheet of paper, and there's narrative that goes with this, but basically all the narrative and feedback was that you are not only one of the smartest human beings in our school, you are the kindest. You make everyone feel valued. You make everyone feel welcome. You are a social elite because nobody can make somebody new feel a part of this world like you can. And so at that moment, this young man did what I've never seen any leader do. He erased all of that and said, Mrs. Maiers, from here on out, I'm going to act as if. I'm going to act as if this is who I am and this is who I need to be. And that is brave. That is brave. That whole process of accepting who you are and who you need to be is not just an internal reflection. It requires us. It requires everyone to be a part of one another's conversation with the genius that we notice. So take a minute and think about the series of lessons, the nature of them, accepting that genius is our birthright, accepting and taking responsibility for our genius and the genius around, and doing what we can every day to liberate and accelerate our ability to be the best that we can be together. Just turn and talk about that. Any questions about that series of lessons? Okay, I'm going to make you talk. You have to talk. Yes.
Activity. If you're going to do
Yep.
this activity, like you do the mirror.
Yep.
You put, say, 5 words on there.
Yep.
And then you walk around and talk to people. Like you do it in a room.
So I always do it in a room. So I've done it everywhere, in a room of 750 kids to a room of 5 kids, or whatever it is.
Go around, talk to people. Now, when does the report card come in? Say you go and talk
Yep.
to somebody and
Yep.
say, here, fill out
Right.
record, talking. Or if you're familiar with everybody,
Absolutely.
then it's easier.
Right.
But you go and say, here's the report card, fill it out. Will they see the words you put there?
No, that's a great question. So you fold it in half. So when this goes, you fold it in half so only you see the mirror part. So the only thing on the outside is the person's name. So Angela would be on the outside. So then it's passed. I usually only have like an hour and a half if I'm doing this in a school. But if I was really doing this in my classroom, this would be a week of lessons, because I don't want them in 5 minutes to pick their 5 words. I really want that to be deep work. So the other lessons are deep reflective elements. So then I close it, and then that gets passed to 5 people. So you get Angela's name, and you're like, oh, I don't know Angela. So I have to go, Tom has to go find people that know me, how would you describe Angela? What would be the 2 words you use? And so then it comes back filled with reflections, and you don't know what they say. So the sharing of the, what do I want to say, the impact of this, the importance of this, changing you as a person. We have that talk before we start, because it is maddening on 2 levels. I don't just want people not to write bad things on it. I don't want them to write non-specific things. Saying someone's nice does not help them grow. Saying that somebody is smart, and you remember, these are early ones, but as we really get into this, I want specificity. Genius needs a label, and it is our language that is part of our liberation. So I want you to really think about specific things that you know will either elevate or will challenge or will bring somebody to a different level. And I've never I don't even know how many thousands of kids that I've done this with, I've never ever had any regret. The only regret is this one little girl, she came, she's crying afterwards. I'm like, oh my gosh, she wrote something horrible. She goes, Mrs. Maiers, I was not specific enough. I just basically said she was just kind and I wish I could go take it back. And she was like devastated that she was not specific enough. Like that's the deepest error that kids have made, because they take this incredibly seriously. And so then the kids, I want them to have reflection time to go open it up and then reflect on, this is how they write their action plans, their personal growth plan in their Genius Notebook.
Something you mentioned
Yeah.
at your keynote.
Yeah.
When you talked about, as a teacher, we have to understand we matter.
Right.
In order to impact.
Absolutely.
So this, like, I'm a high school teacher.
Yes.
This could be a great activity in a staff meeting.
This is not just a great activity. This is a must-have activity in a staff room. Absolutely.
Everybody in the room.
Right.
And you really don't know what people think.
Absolutely.
Until.
And you don't know how you're seen by the world. So when you talk about mattering and the hierarchy of mattering, to be noticed is one thing, and that's important. It does change us. To not only be valued, but to know your value is game-changing. To know what you bring to the world, what you bring to an experience, that is actually what drives performance. That specific feedback on, you know what I valued most, what I see most, what I appreciate most, what I'm inspired by most, you will jump through fire and you will do that over again. You'll practice that until your, hands and legs are burning, because you know that you're needed. So think about this. This happens on the football field all the time. So my son was a quarterback, and it was his senior year. It was his junior year. And then the quarterback whose senior year came back, he was injured and came back. And so the coach, even though Ryan loved and felt more confident being the quarterback, he stepped aside because the team needed him to let this quarterback sort of live out his legacy. And then Ryan ended up taking a whole new position, which he was not as good at. And so he was willing to do that because he knew he was essential to the team by whatever it meant. And that's a whole different mentality, that you're willing to figure out what your role is based on what is needed from you by the community. And that's profound. Yes?
So when you do this exercise,
Yep.
you pass it around and pass it to 5 people.
Yep.
They have 5 words. You have 25 words.
Yep.
Who brings it back down to 5 then?
That's part of that's why there's 30 lessons, because you're just seeing one of them. But the lessons underneath this section are exactly about that. Just getting your 5 words. And then the deeper part of development is getting your 1 word. You don't even have 5 words. By the time our kids graduate, we have 140 characters right now. But it is going to be down to, you better say, I am Ben, I'm a dinosaur expert, and your life will not be the same until you know, and I'm here for you. I am absolutely here for you. Trying to get down what your one unique value proposition, and not try to be everything to everyone. You can be good and even average at everything else, but at your one thing, your genius needs to be explicit and it needs to shine and show up. Be Joanna on the stage. So that's the whole process. It's not even getting the end result. It's getting that painful, beautiful, chaotic process of self-awareness is the most important thing that our kids can leave with. Mark, could you give me a drink of water? Thank you. Yes, I have 5 minutes left. Are you lying? Oh, dang it. Oh, I'm so not my genius. Okay, let me get through the other two sets and then I'll take questions. So it's not about getting through the slide deck. It's more getting you the full picture. Oh, I'm so sorry. All right, I need you for like 3 hours. Okay, so the accelerate phase this is the genius of genius that no one talks about. Genius leaders and world changers were able to not only scout out, they were able to invite in influence or individuals in which they could embody. And they embodied their dispositions and their mindsets with different genius traits. So, for example, Albert Einstein had a life-size picture of Sir Isaac Newton. And Sir Isaac Newton said on the top of it, "You can get and see farther when you stand on the shoulder of giants." And that's what every individual knew how to do. They knew whose shoulders to stand on. And they knew, thank you. And they knew because they understood that to make an impact, the impact that they were born to make, it could not and would not be done alone. And so they needed to surround themselves with a very select dream team, individuals who emulated what you did not have. And you weren't in competition with them, and you weren't trying to outdo them. You understood they were as essential to your success as you are to your success. And so every member of the dream team was selected because they had a different trait. I selected you for your imagination, and you because you get things done, and you because you're a visionary. If you stuck a whole bunch of visionaries in the room together, nothing would get done, nothing. So you need to make sure that your entire dream team is a diverse representative of genius. So this is my personal dream team. These are not individuals that I am just inspired by. These are individuals that I have studied, that I have immersed myself in, and that I have embodied their dispositions, mindsets, strategies, and habits because I don't have their genius, nor am I trying to have their genius. I know what mine is. So when I need to have strategies to be adaptable, or I need to have strategies on, whatever, then I'm going to take the most genius of individuals who do that, and I'm going to use their technique and find other people like them so that I can get my work done. This is our second partner. This is a platform called Nepris, and it gives you access to the greatest minds across the fields that we exist. It uses the calculations of the recommendations on LinkedIn. It's 140,000 leaders right now, mostly in the fields of STEM, and students can reach out to them. Teachers can type in a standard or a trait like leadership or scientific inquiry or adaptability, and then whoever is available, whether it's a scientist or a historian or whatever, will pop up and you make a video appointment with them. And it's right on the platform, it's free, and then it's archived like Quora so that you can see what a group of scientists, how they act, how they behave, what genius is needed for them to do their work. And I'm going super fast. The whole point of all of this comes down to the most genius of genius, which is taking action. Not planning, not dreaming. Dreaming is not enough. We say dream big. Dream big and then do something with it. Think audaciously and then act on it. And that's what I love about this generation. They understand more than any other generation that the smartest person in the room is not the person at the front of the room. The smartest person in the room is the room. And that's why noticing the genius in your present is so essential, because you know that the action you take, even if your room is 5 people, is far more powerful than anything you could personally do, no matter how smart or how fast or how tall you are. So it is your ability to embody and to ignite the room, incite the room, if you are truly going to use your genius to make an impact. And that's what our kids are doing. They are not tackling little problems. They are tackling the world's most wicked problems, and they're doing it fiercely because they're not doing it alone. They understand that they have the power of the room. And in addition, they also have time. Genius needs time. You cannot change the world like in a period. So I'm very proud of introducing to schools a concept of time that's structured in schools, and we call it Genius Hour. It's 1 hour a week, and I'll go through this, but it was through a deep study of innovative environments. And the whole premise behind Genius Hour is we are biologically lazy. We crave comfort. We crave stability. We don't go out on a limb. We don't dream audaciously. We don't act bravely just by happenstance. If we see a house on fire, everybody here jumps. It is only when urgency is in front of us that we find we have superhuman power. we find that we have incredible possibilities that we didn't ignite because genius had a reason to show up. That's what Genius Hour is for. It's not to have kids work on some silly little project. It's about igniting genius to show up because the world is waiting for them with wicked, hard, challenging problems. And they know that their genius and all genius is needed. And so this is the kind of citizen we're creating. I am a genius because I help people with cancer and the world needs me to save people's lives. I am a genius because I'm an artist and apparently the world needs cute artists. And I need that, the world needs me. I'm a genius because I recycle. The world needs me to help keep it clean. We need a citizenship where kids believe that they are needed and there is no other option but to be brave and to work and to do things that everyone else says are impossible. So here's what Genius Hour looked like for a long time in analog. Before we had technology partners in that hour, and we needed it to be an hour because this was the accept part. This was the personal proclamation of your brand promise, your value proposition. I am Angie, and my genius is dinosaurs, and if you need me, I am there. This is the acceleration. You had an entire room, an entire school of geniuses to stand on the shoulders of. I know that you dance, I need to meet with you. I know that you're a coder, I need to meet with you. I know that you're an artist, we need you on our team. So we made physical appointments with each other using library cards, like I need your genius, which accelerated everybody, the teacher and the learner. And then finally, we organized ourselves around things that mattered most and things that mattered to the world most. And through collective action, we changed the world. And our kids are still doing that to the tune of almost 1 million kids. They've launched hundreds of social enterprises. They have passed laws. They've moved forward change in countries, and they are 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. It is breathtaking because they believe that they, with the room behind them, can tackle anything the world brings to them, and that's exactly what they're doing at scale. I am really proud, and I'll skip this, I'm really proud to announce 2 things. The new evolution of the movement is the way, as we've watched this movement move forward, the way that the entire community gets involved is through the model of not the community leaders, but of our youngest leaders. And through their bravery and through their action, they have the power to rally an entire community. So they are standing up, they are stepping up. The world is letting them know what their genius is, and they are changing the world, and they're pulling together their moms, their dads, their teachers, business leaders. And so our new model of moving forward is instead of going to a community and saying, we're gonna liberate your genius, and we're gonna try to get everybody involved, we ask leaders to step up and pick themselves. We say, we need leaders to move forward change in your community. So a few weeks ago, we were in Saskatchewan, in Prince Albert, and we had no idea if 25 kids were gonna pick themselves or 30 kids were gonna pick themselves, but they had to come in personally branded. They had to come in ready to say, my name is Gracie, and this is my genius, and I am ready to give it and share it with anybody who needs it. And 437 kids came, grade 3 to grade 12. Our kids are ready and waiting to change our world. They just need to be asked. So I'm very excited to announce that I'm living proof of never losing your dream. When kids started changing things in the movement and real world action was coming in, I kept thinking when there was 6 classrooms doing Genius Hour, it was easy to say, oh, you need to meet this person. There's this guy over here, and I was the matchmaker. And then it was 60 classrooms and 6,000 classrooms and now I'm like, I can't do this. And so I made a little sketch of a really bad PowerPoint with still stock photo on it. And I said, wouldn't it be amazing if we could just click on the actions taken by kids and that they could know not only what actions we're taking, but what challenges they're facing so that I can use my genius either to join with them or to give them, to give them support. And we could leverage the full collective genius, not just of a school, not just of a community, but of students around the globe. And for 3 years, everybody said this was impossible, that it would cost millions and that this would not happen and it's crazy, we'd never get kids on there. And about 3 weeks ago, it exists. So Microsoft built a platform to leverage student genius. It is officially up. It is empty. Like there's no actions in there because it just became real. And so starting as soon as we contribute, you'll be able to click on human rights and see all the actions K-12 kids are taking in 100 countries to move forward that change. And your kids can join in, or they can say, you know what, no one's doing that. I'm going to be the one to do that. And we can show the world what true genius looks like. Fully leveraged, fully liberated. And the only way this is going to happen, and this is my last comment, the only way this is going to happen is if you believe in kids. Because the one thing, everybody says, what are you giving kids to do this? Are you giving them credit? Are you giving them money? Why are you, and I said, first of all, they've never asked for credit. They've never asked for money. They've never asked for anything but a chance to change the world. And the only thing that I did that you haven't done at scale is I fully believed that they were capable of doing just that, and I expected them to do nothing short of that. And so our belief in kids is the single most critical element for this to be a reality and not just some vision of possibility. So that is why you matter. That is why they need you. And that is why I wrote this book, because it's very hard growing up in a world where we were told that was impossible and it was actually accurate. It's hard switching that for our brain. It's hard switching the idea that impossible is meant to be defied and we are the ones to defy it. And so this is a new habit. There are 30 lessons, one for every day, to grow our capability to see kids as change makers and to see ourselves as change makers. And that's why I made this free. I'm not going to say you can change the world for $29.95. I want us to write not only this book together, I want us to write the future of education together, to show our kids and show the world that there is hope and that it's sitting right next to you, the genius beside you. So, any questions? You didn't need to clap. I'm clapping for you. This doesn't exist without you. It doesn't exist because I can't look your kids in the eye and say, I need your contribution. You can do that. Yes. And I'll stay as long as you want. Any question you have, I'm done for the whole rest. I'm here till Friday. So, yes.
This sounds awesome. It is awesome. The question I have, though, is I find is that if we do this in elementary, high school,
Yep.
and then you got into admission criteria to universities,
I'm so glad you asked that.
right? Then it's
Right.
like, are they ready? Because they spend time problem solving, but necessarily they're not, meeting the
This is their future. So I won't go into detail, but I'm going to send a report. 144 colleges about 4 weeks ago made a joint task statement that we are in a mental health crisis because of what we've been noticing. This is a humanitarian call to action because they said, we are sorry. This is Harvard, this is Yale, this is MIT, this is Oxford, and everything underneath. 144 colleges came out and said, we are no longer going to wait. SAT, ACT, the things on this side of the list, we want your game tape. So we put, I'm going to add this to the book. We've been collecting college entrance essay questions. So Stanford's MBA question is, what matters to you and why? My daughter's entrance exam or entrance question was, how will your contribution to the university and the broader community change its face, change its future? Wake Forest is, what hashtag do you rally around? And if you don't have one, what would be yours and what would be your plan to rally others around it? These are not just game-changing questions. This is a game-changing statement to say, and that's what the article's called, the tides are turning. The tides are turning because we need all genius. We don't just need people that get A's or genius that looks like this. We need every kind of insight, every kind of talent, every kind of story, and we're not getting it. 88% of the population is not contributing to their full genius. Going back to, because they have not accepted that they have it. They have not accepted that they are enough. And they have bought into the fact that they're just a worker or just, whatever it is that we put just behind. So it is not a given that schools are going to catch up. But to have higher ed make that big of shift, and they put it under the context of not an education crisis, but a humanitarian crisis because we have mental health issues that are pandemic. Everything from suicide to sickness, to dropouts, and it is all because people are not living in congruency. And that is why I'm so grateful that at a tech conference, we opened up a technology conference with not talking one element about tech and talking about who we are. And that is why I'm so honored to be here and to be in this conversation with you.